In this video, we will be looking at how to approach and answer question 4 from section A of the AQA GCSE English Language Paper 1. Before you watch this video, it is advisable to watch my video which looks at questions 1 to 3 first. Firstly, because that video gives a more in-depth rundown of what you might expect from the whole paper, but also because we look at the same source here in this particular video, and that is the paper from November 2018. So watch that video first if you have the opportunity before you come on to this one. I'll quickly recap the structure of the paper again, which was I did in my last video too. Section A is the reading section where you're given an extract from a fiction, normally a novel, piece of fiction, normally a novel. It could be a short story, and you are asked 4 questions. Question 1 to list 4 things. Question 2 is about how the writer uses language for particular effect. Question 3 details how the writer has structured the extract to interest the reader. And then the question we're looking at here, question 4, the to what extent question, a 20 marker. In terms of timings, the exam board advised that you spend 1 hour on section A. Given that you're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes reading and annotating this extract, that leaves you just over 1 minute per mark for actually writing your answers, and therefore you should spend at least 20 minutes on question 4. Please do not spend less than 20 minutes on that question. It is the most important question in this section of the paper. It's worth half the marks in this section of the paper. Ensure that you leave time to do it justice. So question 4 will look something like this, and you will be given a chunk of the extract to look at. It's normally from a certain line to the end. In this case, it's from line 31 to the end of the extract. A student said, "This part of the story where the men encounter the Tyrannosaurus Rex shows Eccles is right to panic. The monster is terrifying." It's a made-up quote from a fictional student, but that is the one you have to deal with. Now take the time here to look at what this statement is asking you to look at, because often there is more than one focus. And here we have 2. The first is that Eccles is right to panic, and the second is that the monster is terrifying. And you should deal with both of those in your answer. Then says, to what extent do you agree? In your response, you could consider your own impressions of Eccles' reaction to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, evaluate how the writer describes the monster, and support your response with references to the text. The important words here are your own impressions. This is an answer which asks you to express an opinion, but you must be evaluative and look at the methods, how the writer has created those effects. And in doing that, you will include quotations from the text. So a to what extent question requires you first of all to be evaluative. That means you must consider, where possible, both sides of the argument. The statement will normally be framed in such a way that it's easier to agree with it than disagree with it. But I mean, that's up to you as a student and how you read the text, but normally they're leading you to agree with the statement to the larger extent. You can consider alternative interpretations even though you see something in a particular way. You need to have the ability to consider that somebody else might see that in a different way. You can offer opinion and you must make judgments. It's to what extent. It's not just it looks like this, but how far does it look like this? Not just that you agree, but how far do you agree with the statement? So you're going to need to analyse how the writer creates these impressions. That's possibly the most important element of this question. What methods has the writer used? In this question, you're going to bring together the skills that you've been looking at for question 2 and question 3, because you can analyse language and structural devices. And you can be evaluative across the whole extract. So I agree here, but disagree here. Or you can be evaluative with an individual quotation, and I'll look at how you do that in a moment. So this is the extract from line 31 to the end, and I'm going to pick out some evidence from here. If you've already watched my videos for questions 1 to 3, I've been through this extract already in a little bit more detail, but it's 31 to the end, so you have quite a lot of information here to look at. So first of all, you could be evaluative across the whole text. So you might have evidence on one side which agrees with the statement, and in this case the rifle in his hands seemed like a toy gun might agree with the statement that Eccles is right to panic and that the Tyrannosaurus Rex is terrifying. The Tyrannosaurus is described, its armored flesh glittered like 1,000 coins, and the monster roared, teeth glittering with sun. All of this evidence might encourage you to agree with the idea that Eccles is right to panic and the Tyrannosaurus is terrifying. And then ideally you would have evidence on the other side of the argument. So its jeweler's hands might suggest it's fragile and delicate in some way. Like a stone idol, like a mountain avalanche, the Tyrannosaurus fell, which suggests to us that the beast is fallible and can be defeated. And so that might sit on the other side of the argument. But you can also be evaluative with a single quotation. So take one piece of evidence and look at the different interpretations of it. And you should be doing this in question 2, and you would also do it in your literature responses as well. If you're looking at a quotation from Macbeth, for example, it doesn't have just one possibility. You can look at a single quotation from different angles. Let's look at this one. The monster twitched first of all. Well, twitched might suggest that that action is momentary and brief and therefore non-threatening. But we can look at that from a different point of view and suggest that twitched is perhaps something automatic and machine-like, as if this monster does this thing without thinking, which makes it particularly troubling. We could look at the jeweler's hands, the metaphor here, and suggest that it's delicate or fragile in some way. But we might also look at that same piece of evidence and say that this monster has precision and thinks about its actions carefully. And that would make it particularly threatening. We could look at the way it fondles the men and suggest that that's something soft and tender and therefore non-threatening, but at the same time it comes easily to the T-Rex and that makes it sinister. So take one piece of evidence and be evaluative with it. Look at it from a number of possible perspectives. The language of evaluation is quite important, and using phrases such as this can help you to become automatically evaluative. First of all, phrases such as on the one hand, and it could be argued that, present one point of view. On the other hand, however, present the other point of view. And then ultimately, at the end, you make a judgment about what your point of view is and what your opinion is. So you look at both sides of the argument and then make an overall judgment. The use of evaluative adverbs also helps you to become evaluative. As I said earlier in the video, it's not just about stating your opinion, but how far you agree. So if you say something like the writer arguably makes the T-Rex terrifying, there is a judgment. If you say the writer unquestionably makes the T-Rex terrifying, then you are making a judgment. So those evaluative adverbs, if you just include those in your writing, you immediately become evaluative and start making judgments. So let's have a look at an example. It is almost unquestionably clear that the T-Rex is entirely terrifying and that Eccles is right to panic. Certainly, when the rifle is described like a toy gun, the use of the simile highlights the insignificance of the men in comparison to the monstrosity of the beast. Moreover, when the writer describes the lizard thunder, the metaphor makes the beast appear godlike, thereby giving it the terrifying power to manipulate and control the men. What I'm trying to do here, as you can see, in the first sentence, the use of the evaluative adverb unquestionably, I'm certain about this point of view, there is a judgment. And certainly, likewise. But what's most important is I'm using evidence and I'm analysing how the writer creates those effects. The use of the simile, I can look at key words, the use of the metaphor here is all focused on method. And then I can look at an alternative point of view and be evaluative with one single piece of evidence. Conversely, so I'm going to look at the alternative view straight away. It could certainly be argued that there are moments in this extract where the T-Rex does not appear to be terrifying and therefore Eccles' panic is not justifiable. When we learn that the T-Rex twitched its jeweler's hands, the use of the verb twitched suggests that the action is only momentary and the beast is not wholly in control. Moreover, the metaphor of the jeweler's hands makes the T-Rex appear delicate and fragile. However, twitched also has connotations of something automatic and machine-like, which renders the beast indestructible, whilst the jeweler's hands are also suggestive of precision, as if the T-Rex is careful in the way it chooses to destroy the men, thereby making the monster terrifying and justifying the panic of Eccles. So what I've done here is I've looked at the alternative view to the one I've presented in the opening paragraph, analysed my evidence as I've done previously, and focused on the methods and the techniques that have been used. But then I've taken the same quotation and looked at the alternative interpretation of that. And by doing that, I automatically become evaluative. You need to use probably another paragraph there. You probably need another paragraph in the same vein, presenting your point of view with evidence and analysis to get the 20 marks. But with those two paragraphs there, you'd be well on your way to 20 marks because they are highly evaluative, they use evidence, and they analyse method. I hope that's been useful as an introduction to how to answer and approach question 4. I will do a further video actually which details how to approach the extract itself and how you might go about annotating that. But I hope that's been useful. What you should probably do now after watching the 2 videos for Language Paper 1 is take a practice question and have a go at applying some of those techniques and methods and strategies to that particular paper. And that would help to reinforce the messages that I've tried to put forward here.